We're talking specifically today, right now, about Chapter 7 bankruptcy. What happens before the bankruptcy? What happens immediately before you file? What happens when you file it? And what happens afterwards? But think of it this way. Chapter 7, a lot happens in a little time. So when you're filing a Chapter 7, we kind of break it up into stages because a lot's going to happen at each stage, but it all flows logically through the system. So when somebody comes in to see me and they say, Carmen, I want to retain you to represent you in a Chapter 7. What do I do next? Well, after we get the retainer agreement signed, we go ahead and we give our clients a list of documents that they need to produce. And it's quite extensive. We also give them a workbook to fill out, dealing with their income, their expenses, their assets, and their liabilities. And a lot of people look at this thing and go, oh my gosh. But if you think about it, when you break down each area of your life, you've got a lot going on. Unless, you just get Social Security, and then that income goes right into your bank account. Or, you don't really have a lot of going. You have a mortgage and a car payment, and then you got some stuff, or you rent an apartment, and, you just got a lease. Yeah, certain aspects of your case may be a lot simpler than others. But let's say, for example, you own a home, you got a first mortgage and a second mortgage, and then you got an investment property, and then you've got several vehicles in the household. The paperwork starts to rack up. Likewise, you may have a couple credit cards, or gas cards, a couple store cards, you've got bank statements, you've got everything else. So what we do is we kind of logically lay out everything that you're going to need from your income. I always ask everybody to produce at least 7 months of bank statements from every bank account that you have opened or are in your name. So for example, if you have your own corporation, I'm going to want to see those corporation documents as well, especially in a Chapter 7. Number 2, I'm going to need to see pay stubs from every employer you had in the last 7 months. So now is a perfect time to hit this category because it's July 1st. If you're going to file your case in July, the Bankruptcy Code requires and demands that we look at 6 months worth of income prior to the month you file. So if you're going to file in July, we got to look at income from January, February, March, April, May, and June. And again, we can't half step here because it requires us to perform an analysis of your income for the 6 months prior to filing. And that's including all the people in the household. I look at it and say it's the heads on the bed test. How many heads are on the bed at night? If there's 5 people in the household, we go with a household of 5. If there's 4, we go with a household of 4. That's what we're looking at, how many people in the household and how much income is coming into the house to perform the means test. We also need, if you're self-employed, we also need your balance sheets, your profit and loss statements, basically any financial documentation which shows how much money your business is bringing in and how much is going out for expenses. It becomes critical, especially we have a lot of self-employed people in Southwest Florida, whether you're a plumber, electrician, auto mechanic, or a realtor. They're even a mortgage broker, whoever, if you're kind of in a business working for yourself or you're like a 1099 employee, we're going to need to see the income, we're going to need to see the expenses. Now, here's where it gets kind of ugly, when we start asking people to do an inventory of your household goods and furnishings. You would think this is like pulling teeth, but it's very difficult and people have a real hard time getting their hands around this. You're signing the bankruptcy paperwork when you file under penalties of perjury. If they'd asked you how much cash you have in your pocket on the day you file, you need to count your cash and list it. You need to know how much is in your bank account on that day. I'm not talking about, well, I just signed my rent check and I just put it in the mail today. So when I take that out, and it comes out next week, but if you're filing today, it better be accounted for. The bankruptcy trustee is going to be looking for it, and they're going to want a full accounting of where the money went. So let's keep going with that. Let's say you get your inventory done, but you've got a vehicle, or you've got something else with a title, like a boat, or anything, your boat, your trailers, if you have a trailer. All those things need to be accounted for, and we need to know exactly what those things are worth and whether or not there's any liens on them. If there is a lien on it, let's say for a car, you have a 2008 Ford F-150, and it's got a lien on it from Ford Motor Credit. Well, I need to know what that vehicle's worth in today's condition. So if you've got that 2008 F-150, but it's got 100,000 miles on it, it's going to be real hard to use NADA retail value because of the high mileage. Any excessive wear and tear has got to be taken into consideration as well. Then we're looking at the lien. Well, what if you owe $10,000 and the vehicle's only worth $9,500? Well, that's fine. We just need to document it. It's okay to have a vehicle that's upside down and keep it and keep paying for it. It's okay to have a house that's upside down and keep it and keep paying for it if you want to do that. So we're looking for on a vehicle, we're looking for the titles. We're looking for the purchase documents because we want to see if anything went into it, how much money you put down on it. All this needs to be verified. And we're looking for insurance documents. The Bankruptcy Code says we need to list the insurance information in the petition and schedules. Number two, let's go down a little bit and talk about houses. Same thing. If you have a home, we need to know who's on the deed. We need to know who's on the promissory note. And we need to see any other documentation you have with regard to that house. For example, the monthly bills for electric, the housing insurance, if you've got homeowners insurance, which you should, if you've got a condo association or a homeowners association, all that needs to be taken into consideration. Next, if you've been involved in any lawsuits, if anybody sued you, if anybody sued you for any reason, a personal injury case, a divorce, we need to see all the divorce documentation. If you've been sued on a debt from like a credit card company or a business loan or a lease where you failed to fulfill the obligations or like an old medical bill way back when, that all needs to be taken into consideration because certain procedures need to be put in place for that. Criminal records. If you've been convicted of a felony in the last 10 years, that's relevant to your case. So we need to look at that as well. I talked about the child support. Any bills from any debt collectors, any bills from any creditors, and the reason why. Bankruptcy is all about notice. You have to give your creditors notice of everything and anything that's going on in your financial life. So for example, let's say you bring me a Visa bill. I look at it and say, okay, I got the Visa bill. I want to list the Visa bill where you're mailing your payments. I want to list the customer service number, and I want to list any addresses that are on that bill, just to make sure that these creditors are getting adequate notice that you filed. There's a reason for it later, and I'll explain. I'm going to need a copy of your driver's license. I'm going to need a copy of your Social Security card. If you don't have a Social Security card and you're thinking about filing bankruptcy, hightail it on down to the Social Security office and get that Social Security card, because that is going to be a critical piece of evidence that you need to provide to your attorney and to the bankruptcy trustee when you go to your meeting of creditors. So make sure you get a valid Florida ID card or driver's license and a Social Security card. Next, if you're the beneficiary of any wills or trust, I'm going to need those documents as well. I need to see whether or not there's something that the bankruptcy trustee can go after. Let's say, for example, you have some type of trust where you're the beneficiary and the bankruptcy trustee can go after it, and there's a $10,000 that you're to receive it there. That would be part of your bankruptcy estate. It would be better if you knew about that before you filed than say, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Employment contracts. If you're an employee who has an employment contract, we're going to want to see that employment contract as well. Again, you see how this flows. Basically what's happening is you're required to document everything that you're telling the court. So if you're saying to the court, I've got $300 a month in outstanding medical bills that I need to pay for prescriptions, for copays, for this, for that, be able to document it. Show me the checks, show me the bills, show me the medicines that you bought. Not that I don't want to know the medicines, I want to see the receipts from, let's say, the Walgreens pharmacy. That's what I need to see to document it. And then all other items that you believe are important. If there's something that's relevant to your situation and you think we need to see it, err on the side of being over-inclusive. It's extremely important that you are 100% honest with your attorney. And this way we can give you a fair evaluation of your case prior to filing. You don't want to file a Chapter 7 case and then find out later, oh my goodness, we overlooked something. Or, oh my goodness, I forgot to tell you about this. Because then you've already gone through the process, you've signed these documents under penalties of perjury, and now you're in front of a trustee at a creditor's meeting, and what's the first thing to do? Please raise your right hand, we're going to swear you in. And again, you're going to testify under penalties of perjury. You don't want to be in that situation. And as much as I can do to try to help my clients get through that, there may be something that slipped through the cracks, and that's where you got to be really careful and really diligent. So again, those are the major issues that we're going to need prior to preparing the case. Those are the documents we're going to need.